Well, good morning. We're gonna go ahead and get our meeting started. I'm gonna ask the Representative Smith if he will lead us in prayer this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lord, we thank you to give us another day, and thank you for all the blessings you've given us, and help us to liberate in a manner you'd have us to serve our citizens. And thank you for our health, Lord. We take that for granted a lot until we get sick, but we have people at home that need your healing hand, and we pray that you will comfort them. Be with us, guide us, and direct us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
We have one bill on the agenda this morning, SB 115. Online, we've got Representative Alexander and Representative Kennard and Representative Prince and Representative McLean. Glad to have all of them with us this morning as well. And I think Ms. Leslie with DDS is online as well. So at this time, we will go ahead. Senator Robertson is not here this morning, and I think he wanted Representative Montahan to present the bill, and you can do that from there. What number?
Let's see, 6.
Okay, if your mic is on,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Welcome back to another beautiful committee day. I'm with no tie today, so very casual. And we've got a bill that's more casual today than probably came out of the Senate. Senator Robertson had a bill that sought out to teach drivers in our state how to interact with law enforcement when they are pulled over or in other instances. That passed out of the Senate. We had input from many different departments about kind of their role in that process. And I think what we have here today is a very simple way of doing that using some different programs that are already prescribed in law. So we're just pushing down to a distribution model that we already have. And so members, what this does is it seeks to teach drivers the following 4 things: the best practices of what a driver should do during a traffic stop initiated by a law enforcement officer, recommendations for interacting with law enforcement officers during traffic stops, the consequences associated with continuous citations and habitual violations, and understanding officer discretion in relation to action taken during a traffic stop, which may include but not limited to requesting identification, use of force, detainment, pursuits, and legal warnings. And what this code section will do is say, hey, if I'm taking a driver training class in the state of Georgia, as part of the class structure that exists today, this is not an additional class. This is based on the curriculum that they're currently being taught. They must teach this training. That pretty much wraps up the bill, Mr. Chairman. Any questions? Happy to answer them.
is there any additional fee
No, sir.
associated with this?
No, sir. This is if you have to take a driver's education class today, when you do take that course, you got to have this training as part of that curriculum. So it's more of a requirement for the curriculum providers and less for the actual students themselves. I mean, these students will end up getting this information when they take a driver's education course in the state of Georgia. And it's important. We do this with several different things. For example, high beams and low beams and they kind of how they interact and drive the roadways. This is just more information that they're going to have to learn while behind the wheel, doing driver training.
Okay. Do we have other questions? Anybody online? We got Representative Kennard online. If he will go ahead with his question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing this bill. I do have some conflict with it. As a matter of policy, I think we're trying to deal with this problem the wrong way. Certainly, there's a training issue between our police force, law enforcement, and our citizens, but I think we're deflecting and misplacing responsibility for this training on the citizen when the training should be poured into our law enforcement officers, our men and women who wear badges, to learn how to better de-escalate situations, better how to de-escalate mental health, addiction, And I think certainly training needs to be in play here to avoid things like we saw with George Floyd and so many others that have been highlighted in the media the last several years. But I think this is misplaced, and we're deflecting responsibility away from the law enforcement, who are the paid professionals, and bearing this burden on our citizens. I just think this is wrong as far as a policy matter. I strongly oppose this measure. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any further questions? We also have a section 2 of this bill. I'll ask Chairman Powell if he would like to speak to that.
You playing the blues?
Oh, Ryan has.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Brian.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's a few of us online with our hands up.
Okay, I'm sorry. My fault. Let's before we go there, let's go to Representative Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I said this in the subcommittee, and I will say this again. So we're trying to legislate how to treat citizens from the way people that are supposed to protect and serve. So I would like to offer a friendly amendment that within this curriculum, that the constitutional rights for those citizens is also a part of the training. Because otherwise, what is the purpose of this bill?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I think to the gentle lady's question, this is about drivers. I mean, for the most part, let's just look at this thing in context. This is for children. I mean, these kids are going to be 15, 16 years old. And what we're trying to do is put this as part of a driver's education curriculum. The program already exists. And to be frank with you, this is about making sure they know what to do when the car's pulled over, right? And their interaction with law enforcement. It's part of our course curriculum. Now, we do it already at our school, but many other folks don't do it, right? And so it's important. Just like we teach almost anything on the roadway, what is the significance of a gore in a roadway, or what is the significance of a shape or color of a sign? I think it's just as important for them to understand, what do they need to do when they see those blue lights behind them? And so I would welcome, the representative to drop a bill if that's what she intends on doing a new class on the constitutional rights of Georgia citizens. Happy, drop that bill, and work that bill through committee. That ain't what this bill does.
Right, right.
This bill is about training students, right, who are coming to this process to understand what they need to do as they are interacting with law enforcement.
Further questions, Mr. Chairman. So wouldn't children, shouldn't they be apprised of their constitutional rights?
Well, I mean, look, the answer to that question again, I think we're talking apples and oranges, right? I mean, we're talking about the interaction with police when you get pulled over as part of a driver's ed course. I mean, if you want to drop a bill and say, hey, constitutional rights is going to take more than 30 hours in a Joshua's Law course. You're going to have some legal professors. I just don't think that is the intention of this bill, is to have a college course on constitutional rights. This is just to give these kids who are taking driver's ed the information they need, that when they're driving down that roadway, that they understand, hey, this is what I need to do. I need to pull over the side of the road. If it's at night, I need to turn on my dome light. I need to put my hands on the wheel and roll down my window. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, but constitutional rights need to be a part of this bill.
Okay, we've got some other questions, and then we will entertain the amendment after we get through that. All right, Representative McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm still trying to figure out, I heard Representative Moore.
Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
We lost you, Representative McLean. We lost the audio.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Thank you. I heard Representative Moynihan say what the intent of this bill was. I still don't know exactly what the intent of this. I hear what he's saying about the intent of this bill, but I also hear what Representative Alexander is saying too. So I I think if we're going to make this bill, and I know you're going to entertain the motion, the amendment in a few minutes, but my question was, I'm only concerned that we are still not, I don't know where best practices come from. I don't know if it's excuse me, and it's bad to say this, I don't know if it's a George Floyd best practice or if it's Ahmaud Berry best practice. I don't know what best practice that we're talking about. I don't think, so what I'm trying to say to you all is, and I'm saying it to the author, we need to make sure that the citizens' rights are protected as well as the protections of the police officer.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
I will say that in the bill, if you look on line 14, the Department of Public Safety, in collaboration with the Georgia Public Safety Training Center, shall develop a curriculum or presentation curriculum to educate drivers and the public on the best practices to implement when interacting with law enforcement officers. When Senator Robertson presented this bill in the subcommittee, he said that he was open to all input from stakeholders and that he will hold that in a very open and transparent way. And I'm committed as somebody who has a good amount of knowledge in this industry and understanding in this policy sector to also making sure that we have all inputs. It's important, no doubt about it. But we have to keep our eye on the ball, and that is, hey, these are kids that don't understand how to parallel park. They don't understand that a red sign with 4 letters on it says stop on it, that they need to stop there, that they need to be able to see the stop bar. And so this is very basic information that we want to teach all Georgians as they're coming through a driver's education program. That's it. Very simple. And I will tell you that I know that Gypstick and others be more than happy to take, any type of information and input into creating this program. They won't turn you down. I know that.
All right, we've Representative Prince online with a question.
Well, I did drop my hand because I think Representative Monahan answered. My question was, who's going to develop this curriculum? And I got that answer there. And so I'm good to go. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We've also got a couple more that have joined us. We got Chairman Barr and Representative Howard and Matt Barton. We about got a full house. Great this morning. Number 14,
Hey, Mr.
Vice
Chairman.
Chair Ridley.
Thank you. I guess to my friend down there, Mr. Monahan, Representative Monahan, is it not true? I've got a 16-year-old son, and what we're doing here with this bill is simply saying, whenever the place gets behind you blue lights, you pull over to the left-hand side of the road or not the right-hand side, kind of get you out of the road, make them understand why. If you're a girl, you probably want to go to a well-lit area. Yeah. I mean, we're just kind of giving them basic information. And I know that we understand that and we kind of take it for granted because we've been driving for so long, but I never really understood. And a lot of y'all probably don't until you have a 16-year-old and you get in the car with them. They really don't have a clue about how to do things and why we do things and that kind of stuff. And I think that that's simply this part of the curriculum here is going to be, explaining why and how you do these things. Is that not correct?
That's right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, we've got more problem, and we've got problems like people who are pretending to be police, pulling over
Exactly.
young teenage girls and accosting them or worse. And so this talks about best practices from almost all sides of the spectrum, right? And so it's going to be a good measure to just make sure that we're informing Georgia drivers. And hopefully in the future, as this code section stands and more of these teenagers and more of these students are getting trained, we'll have a state that has full knowledge on what to do when they're pulled over and how to interact with law enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
All right. At this time, we do have one speaker one to speak to the bill. Christopher Bruce, will you come to the podium, state who you are and who you're with, and 2 minutes, would you?
Sounds
Good,
good,
good.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much. My name is Christopher Bruce. I am the political director for the ACLU of Georgia. In front of you, gentlemen, you have a letter by over 30 organizations opposing this bill in its current form. And it's basically going around this discussion that was brought up by Representative Alexander. There are a lot of basic things that we do believe that the general public should be aware of. And there's nothing so basic and nothing so important in our sacred constitutional rights. And this course could actually use that type of information to actually apprise people of their constitutional rights. So the two things that are really looking at us within this bill are, one, the interaction between the police and the people. And that has been a very highly touted topic lately, especially communities of color. So when there are bills that are in place talking about training of individuals of how they should interact with the police, and yet when you see individuals being shot and killed by the police or treated poorly by the police, and there's no bills that are addressing that, that is a slap in the face of those communities, especially communities of color. That's where these concerns are really coming from. And we're just saying that, hey, we will go ahead and we can address that too with the police. But within this bill that are going into communities of color and how to teach them how to interact with the police, you have to include constitutional rights within it. The American Civil Liberties Union emphasizes that to the utmost extent. And there is no reason why we should shy away from that. No, you do not need a legal course. I went to Georgia, go Dogs, for law school. We do not need a legal course on your basic constitutional rights dealing with police interactions. We could do this, and I'll recommend it, put this into a study committee, develop the course, and we can vote this out later on. We can have these type of conversations. We could table this altogether and bring it back next year and work on it there. But I want to be perfectly clear when it comes to voting on something where you want your constitutional rights to be taught to your children about interacting with the police. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield to any questions.
Do we have any questions?
Yes, hot mic.
Vice Chair
Hot
Ridley.
mic today.
Thank you for coming. I've got a couple of questions. I guess, and I've never grew up in a black community or community of color.
No.
And, I don't need to condescend remarks. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know what y'all went through, but I know what I went through in my area, and having my last name wasn't real popular for about 100 years up there. So you was automatically kind of guilty whenever you got pulled over. But what you're talking about is a whole different bill that would go through public safety. It has to do with law enforcement. What we're doing here is nothing different than what we're requiring our teachers to teach in certain curriculum in schools. And I feel like y'all come in here and y'all are trying to make something out of nothing, to form a platform, because this bill has absolutely nothing to do with training police officers. That's a whole different committee. It's a whole different issue. All we're trying to do is make sure our kids, just like they know how to use the yield sign or when to use the express lane. We're just trying to teach them what to do when something happens, when a police officer gets behind you, because everybody gets nervous when the police officer gets behind you. And so that's all this bill is trying to do. And, and so that's y'all are on two different subjects. And like I think Representative Monahan said it, I'd welcome a bill. If y'all want to make police have training, I mean, add to their training, that's fine, but that'd go in public safety and that would be a different issue. And that's, you want to talk about constitutional rights. If I ain't mistaken, I think y'all are pretty much always one stepping on constitutional rights. Y'all want to be able to say y'all stuff, but we can't say what we want to say, so it's not always even. But that's all I have to say.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Well, I don't know if there's a question in that, more as of a statement. We got another question from Representative Monahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to the gentleman's point, I know we talked about it. What is the bill number that includes the language that y'all would like to see?
You're talking about the bill number to include the language that we'd like to see?
No, I know you had I know we had several representatives here. You said you had language. What is that bill number?
I don't believe there is a bill number for any type of language. I believe it's going to be proposed in amendment.
Okay, but there's no bill being dropped, right?
I don't know if there is a bill being dropped or not.
There's none that's been dropped yet.
I'm unaware if there's any bill that deals with your constitutional rights.
Nothing been dropped so far. Let me say this. This is a bill about teaching, to the gentleman's point. This is a bill that's here to teach children about police interaction as they go under, and to the bills, it says right here, Such curriculum shall be used as part of a driver education training course provided for by law. Driver training course as defined in Georgia code. That means a driver's ed course primarily for children. And so here's what I'm trying to say. I think the commentary here is, again, we find the politicization of a bill that's simply trying to teach all Georgians how to interact with police. For your sons, for your daughters, for these kids who get nervous, who don't understand. But we're using this today as talking points for maybe a video or something, because we want to try to score this political football and run it down to the goal. It's just getting absurd at this point. This is not that bill. If you have a bill that does what you want to do, to the gentleman's point, that bill can go to public safety. That bill can go through higher education. That bill can go through education. That bill can go to judiciary. This is about teaching young drivers. We have circumscribed this measure to make sure that we're teaching all Georgia children who take a driver's education course prescribed by law, make sure they have some basic information about how they interact with law enforcement. And if I may take a moment of personal privilege, I appreciate if we don't politicize driver safety in the state, because it's not a political issue, it's a safety issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. I think we've had a pretty good discussion on this.
Mr. Chairman, I raised my hand.
Well, yeah, and everybody's had a chance to ask a question. People have got some rules and stuff to us. I allow one more, Representative McLean, if you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to take long because I just want people to know that this was supposed to have been a question of the person in the way, I mean, at the podium, not statements. And I just want people to know that, sure, my youngest is 43. She was 16, and we had the talk. You know, there is a such thing as the talk. And what we have to try to realize is the communication is, I still don't know what this bill does. I mean, if we already teach it, why do we need it?
Okay, and I think we've heard that question before. Thank you for that. I'm on, can you give 2 minutes? I got, let Chairman Powell talk about this section 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you want to look at section 2. This is a bill that had passed earlier in the session as a House bill. And as we know that in the legislative process, things get tangled up. But this is the language that deals with the school zone cameras. Something we passed years ago to slow people down that are going through school zones. In the original version in the current law, it says that the school board has to sign for the permit to the DOT. DOT has to authorize permits to do these school zone cameras. And because of some conflict with some of the school systems, and it's as everything around here, it all goes back to money because they're not getting a portion or they want more than this and that. The cities and the county law enforcement, they're the ones that feel that they'd be the best appropriate source to sign that affidavit to the DOT to authorize these cameras. And that's what it does. There ain't no politics involved in this. There's nothing other than what it is. That if you think that a school zone camera, which carries no criminal offense, no traffic offense, it's only the cameras. And if somebody's speeding over 10 miles per hour through a school zone, then they're assessed. And there's due process into that so that they can appeal if it's not their car or if it's not them as a driver. And this has been extremely helpful in slowing down a lot of the drivers in the school zone. And that's what section 2 does.
Any questions on section 2 of the bill? Not seeing any. I think the posture we're in right now.
Mr. Chairman, briefly, just 2 seconds. That's why I cut my speech. So it was below 2 minutes just to respond in discussion.
We're good. You had 2
I was-
minutes, and we've got people that's got rules. We've got to go to. So thank you for your discussion.
This isn't political, it's constitutional. That's it.
Thank you. All right, at this time, the posture we're in is a motion on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of order. We have an amendment by Representative Alexander.
We will do that at the proper time. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, at this time, the posture in is for a motion on the bill.
Make a motion to pass.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, got a motion, a second. Now we have an amendment. In the amendment, and we have Jenna Goldie online with us as well, and she tells us we need to, that would need to go in line 29, I think, under item number 4, under what needs training to add, and I don't know what the wording would need to be, but I guess to teach the Constitution. And there would be the amendment. Is that is Representative Alexander online? She can tell us what she would
Yes.
like.
Constitutional rights of the citizens be added to the curriculum in the training.
All right, Jenna, have you got that?
Can I make a suggestion on where
Yes,
it
please.
could go?
Yeah, please.
On line 27, after the word discretion, I think you can insert and constitutional rights. And then on line 28, just change requesting to requests for.
Okay, so everybody got that? Okay. All right. Now, we have a motion on the amendment. Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, now we vote on
second.
the amendment. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the amendment?
I do. I have a question.
Okay,
Is for discussion. What rights? Are we talking about the right, for example, for a soldier not to take quarter in a person's home? Do we know which constitutional rights we're talking about? I mean, because I guess we could teach them about, hey, look, a soldier can't take quarter in somebody's home, or can we teach them about Second Amendment rights, or?
I can answer that. Search and seizure rights. Search and seizure rights.
So we got search and seizure, we got Second Amendment, right to free speech, voting rights.
Second Amendment rights.
well, there's several.
And I know we've got mobile voting locations, but I don't think this is pertains to that.
Okay, all right, we have a motion and a second on the amendment. We're gonna do this with a show of hands. Or it's gonna be divided. All in favor of the amendment, raise your hand or say aye online. We're gonna, Representative Alexander. All right, Representative Kennard.
Aye.
Okay, Representative McLean,
Aye.
Representative Prince.
Aye.
We've got, who else we have online? Barr.
Nay, too vague.
Nay on Barr, Representative Howard. And we also got Barton. How about Representative Barton?
Nay.
He's a nay. Is Representative Howard still online with us? He must have went to another meeting. All right.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay. Are you a yay or a nay on the amendment?
Yay.
Okay. All right. Everybody here with a show of hands in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All right. All opposed to the amendment, raise your hand. What's our count, John? So the amendment's voted down. All right, the amendment fails. Now we will, I think the posture we're in is to vote on the bill.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
What's your point? State your point of order.
I would like to make a motion to table this bill until the basic framework of the curriculum is fleshed out and we get community buy-in before we codify this, so we know what we're voting for.
All right, I'm
Second.
not going to recognize your motion at this time. We have a motion already on the floor in favor of the bill and a second. All in favor, say aye. All right,
Nay.
all right,
Nay.
Nay.
let's do a roll call on everybody online. Matt Barton,
Aye.
Montahan, he's already here. Representative Alexander,
Nay.
Representative Barr, Chairman Barr,
Aye.
Representative Howard,
Nay.
Representative Kennard,
Nay.
Representative McLean,
Nay.
Representative Prince.
Nay.
Motion passed 7-5. That's all we have on the agenda for this morning. Thank you all. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Chairman.